Hey, welcome back to the channel. Imagine a world where kindness and honesty are tested in the most unexpected ways. Once, in a peaceful kingdom, there lived a humble and kind-hearted water carrier named Shankar. He was loved by everyone in his village, not just for his hard work, but for the warmth and joy he brought to those around him. Every day he carried water from the river to the villagers' homes, always greeting them with a bright smile and kind words. His happiness was infectious, and despite his simple life he was content, making others admire his pure-hearted nature. One day, word of Shankar's generosity and dedication reached the ears of the king. Intrigued by the tales of this beloved water carrier, the king sent his minister to summon him to the palace. When Shankar arrived, the king smiled and said, "I have heard of your good nature and hard work. From today, you shall serve in my palace, bringing the water for me and my guests." Overjoyed, Shankar rushed home to share the wonderful news with his wife. He put on his finest clothes and returned to the palace, eager to begin his new duty. As time passed, Shankar's cheerful spirit and ability to tell captivating stories made him a favorite among the king's guests. Even the king himself grew fond of Shankar's presence, often calling him to share amusing tales and brighten his mood. However, not everyone was pleased with Shankar's rise in status. The minister, who had once been the king's closest confidant, felt threatened by the water carrier's growing influence. Consumed with jealousy, he devised a cruel plan to get rid of him. One evening the minister visited Shankar's home, his voice dripping with false concern. "Shankar, I must tell you something important. The king has been complaining about the terrible smell of your breath. He doesn't want to embarrass you, but it has become unbearable." Shankar's face turned red with shame. "Oh no, what should I do?" he asked, deeply troubled. The minister, pretending to be sympathetic, leaned in and whispered, "To avoid offending the king, always wear a mask over your mouth whenever you are in his presence." Trusting the minister's advice, Shankar followed the suggestion. The next day he entered the palace with his face covered. The king was surprised but said nothing. Days passed and Shankar never removed his mask, completely unaware of the deceit. After a while the king grew curious and asked the minister, "Why does Shankar always wear that mask?" The minister smirked, sensing his opportunity. "I asked him the same thing. He told me he wears it because he finds your breath unpleasant." The king's expression darkened with anger. Feeling betrayed by the very man he had grown to appreciate, he made a swift decision. "Call the executioner. Stand by the palace gates, and when you see a man leave carrying a bouquet of roses, cut off his head immediately." The next day, Shankar arrived at the palace as usual, mask in place, performing his duties with grace and humility. Pleased with his service, the king handed him a bouquet of roses as a token of appreciation. Shankar bowed respectfully and left the chamber. As he stepped out, the minister, curious about the gift, stopped him. "Who gave you these roses?" he asked. "The king," Shankar replied with a smile. "He wanted to reward me for my service." Blinded by arrogance and greed, the minister snatched the bouquet from Shankar's hands. "I deserve this more than you," he sneered, marching toward the palace gates with his chest puffed in pride. The executioner, following the king's command, saw the man with the roses and swiftly carried out the punishment. The next morning Shankar arrived at the palace as usual. The king, expecting never to see him again, was stunned. "Shankar? You're alive?" he exclaimed. "Tell me, why do you always wear that mask in front of me?" Still unaware of the deception, Shankar answered humbly, "My lord, the minister told me that you found my breath unpleasant, so I wore this mask to avoid disturbing you." The king's eyes widened with realization. "And what happened to the bouquet of roses I gave you yesterday?" Shankar replied innocently. "The minister took it from me, saying he deserved it more than I did." A deep laugh erupted from the king. "Indeed, he did deserve those roses more than you," he said, shaking his head. With that, the king removed Shankar's mask and reassured him, "You have always been honest and kind. From today, you shall be more than just a water carrier. You will be my royal storyteller." This tale reminds us that patience, honesty, and kindness always triumph over envy and deceit. No matter how cunning one's schemes may be, fate has its own way of delivering justice. Those with pure hearts will always find their way to the light, while those consumed by jealousy may unknowingly walk into their downfall.